Hey, what's going on everyone? Tyler Edwards here. Thanks for checking out this video. In this video, I'm just going to give a little interview lighting breakdown and then maybe a little production tip there for you as well. So this room, it's much darker now because it's late afternoon, but when we're filming, it's much brighter outside. So what I did is I used those windows out back behind me as kind of like the motivation, if you kind of pretend like windows keep coming this way, as the motivation for my key light. What I'm using for my key light is the Aputure 300D Mark II with the Glow Easy XXL softbox. It just gives really pretty soft light, and it's really awesome because of how big the source is. You can get that off from the town a little bit more than with a smaller softbox, but it's still kind of relatively a pretty big light source, so it still gives really nice soft shadows and nice soft roll off from highlights to shadows, but still kind of get a little bit of this Rembrandt triangle, pretty subtle. So yeah, looking good there, and that's pretty much all I did for the key light. I tried to keep this as brief as possible for the setup, just because timing and all that kind of stuff. And the rest of the lights that I'm going to talk about, I think there's just two more lights I'm going to talk about, are basically just exposure lifts. So I have an Aputure Nova P300C right behind me, right behind this chair, and then a 600D Pro there in the background. And that's really just to give an exposure lift. So if I turn these off, you can see how dark that background really is. Now, it was a little bit brighter when we're actually filming because that window light was giving us exposure. But as you can see, like, it looks pretty moody and like pretty serious, and I didn't want to have that serious of a look. So I turn those back on, and it just gives a nice little exposure look, kind of evens out this whole scene a little bit more. Now, again, it's much darker now outside than when we were filming, so it's going to look a little bit different, but I'm pretty happy with the results with how the lighting turned out. So now that we talked about that, let's go ahead and talk about a little production tip that will just make your life or your editor's life way easier when you get into editing. And that all has to do with Timecode. Now, Timecode is basically like an internal clock that if you can match them on your audio and cameras, it makes it super easy to sync up in edit, wherever, if you're editing in Final Cut or DaVinci or whatever the case may be. So for me, what I'm using is a Sound Devices MixPre 3.2, and the cool thing is with the cameras that I'm using, right here is a Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. From the stereo out, you can actually jam the timecode from the MixPre into the Pocket Cinema camera through the mic input, which is really cool. And then on the red Komodo, which is what you're looking at right now, I have this cable. This just goes into the extension port, and this is a 3.5 mil on this side. So honestly, all you do is same thing, plug this in to the MixPre, and then you run this into the red Komodo, the extension port, and it'll jam the timecode automatically when you plug it in. So it's really nice. Now, the one thing that you have to make sure you do is when you go into the settings, when you go to outputs, there's a little setting on here. Go to outputs and make sure that the stereo out is set to LTC out instead of stereo out or whatever it is. And what that does is that sends a timecode signal out, you jam it up, and then when you get into post, like you can see right here, you put all the clips on top of each other, highlight them, to just automatically align them by timecode, and boom, your clips are all set up. Now, not really a big deal for like a quick interview like this, but if you're doing, 9 or 10 interviews in a day, or you're filming all day with multiple cameras and audio, timecode is an absolute lifesaver. So that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for checking out this video. And sorry this was all over the place. Love y'all. Peace.